Hello and welcome to this deck tech of Teval, the Balance Skill. This dragon has been the most popular commanders of the month for 10 times in a row. Can we believe it that Tarkir is actually that old already? I can't. Teval is a great commander, but definitely lacks a bit of personality mechanic-wise. Not lore-wise. Teval is a dragon that is now partially sort of the leader of the Sultai, or at least in a way. All of these spirit dragons, they work together with the humans to create what their clans should be. And the Sultai should be a fair world where zombies can rule and are a bit more important than humans, but at least it's fair in the way that you could become a zombie if you try hard enough. Of course, there is still a bit of class being there, but the classes are at least malleable and you could become a zombie yourself and in that way become honorable. Now, the card, let's talk about it. Teval, whenever she attacks, you mill 3 cards. So that's the first thing you can do with Teval, is milling. Then you may return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So you mill. You don't even need to mill the land right now, but if you have sacrificed it before, you can get that land back onto the battlefield tapped. So you could do a landfall thing. And then whenever one or more cards, so also the lands that leave your graveyard, you create a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. So when you mill 3 cards and you do get to return a land from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped, you also get a 2/2, and this is a very strong ability because of that. But of course you can use that second ability with other ways to return things from your graveyard or exile things from your graveyard, for that matter. For board wipes, we have a bit. We have only 3, so it's not a lot. Toxic Deluge always needs to go into my decks. I just love the card. Casualties of War in this case can be very good. It's not really a board wipe as it destroys a bunch of things, but it can destroy 5 things. In this case, you won't even mind really destroying your own land sometimes, because you can get it back for some value. Living Death, also very good. Each player exiles all creature cards from their graveyard, then sacrifices all creatures they control, and then puts all cards they exiled this way onto the battlefield. Now, you might not be able to know it, but I went for a mill strategy. This is also why I don't have too much card draw. Because in this deck, milling yourself can actually be card draw as well. But we'll talk about that later. For card draw, I have Teval's Judgment, which is a 3-mana enchantment that sort of replicates the Teval ability, that whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, you do something. In this case, you can choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. So in total, you can do this 3 times a turn to draw a card, create a treasure token, or create another 2/2. This doesn't go off like your commander does, but it can also draw you a card or ramp you a bit. Euro is very good in this deck. It can draw you a card when it enters. For 3 mana you can play it, and you have to sacrifice it unless you escaped it. But you can very easily escape it, meaning you pay 4 mana, exile the 5 other cards from your graveyard, and you get the 6/6 actually onto the battlefield. When it enters again, you draw 3, or you draw a card. Would have been very good if it drew 3 cards and gained 3 life. And you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield, so also ramping you a bit. Also does this whenever it attacks after you have escaped it. Escaping it? Not sure. Kid Rock Monster, very good. We are not a land deck necessarily, but still can be a lot of value. Also, you need sometimes to just get those lands into your graveyard with this deck. So the fact that it sacrifices lands for you is already very good, but then of course you can play an additional land, and whenever one or more cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, also milling them, you draw a card. Grisly Salvage allows you to put 5 cards into your graveyard. No, that would also be very good, but you also get to put a creature or land from among the 5 cards you looked at from the top of your library into your hand. So it also already draws you 1, but just putting 4 cards into your graveyard is great already. River Kelpie draws you a card whenever whenever a player casts a spell from a graveyard, but basically you want to do this anyways. Welcome the Dead says draw 2 cards, then discard a card and you lose 2 life. This is card draw, I guess. It isn't advantage necessarily, as you pay a thing and discard a thing, or play a thing and discard a thing, but you do get 2 cards back, and you create X tapped 2 zombie tokens, 2 zombie tokens, where X is the number of cards that were put into your graveyard from your hand or library this turn. So also milling before it allows you to create a bunch of zombies. Also has a flashback, which can be very good if you have 10 mana, but no, the flashback is a great value anyways. And Kishla Skimmer, which is 2 mana for a bird that then, whenever a card leaves your graveyard, allows you to draw a card. Only once each turn, so a bit worse than Teval's Judgment. Maybe a lot, but still good value in this deck. Now, we have a lot of mill. We don't really need to talk about all of it. Some are interesting, like Skull Prophet, because it is ramp and allows you to mill 2 cards. Very good, which is just it. Aftermath Analyst definitely wasn't a standard all-star for a while. Mills you 3 cards, which we like, and then you could sacrifice this creature to return all lands from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped immediately. Now do note, if you do this, you won't get a bunch of zombies, you will just get 1 for this ability. Hedron Crab I really like, because we do have a bunch of lands coming into play, and whenever a land you control enters, you will be able to mill yourself for 3 cards. You could also mill your opponents if it is something you want to do. Life from the Loam is definitely something you need in this deck. You get to return up to 3 target land cards from your graveyard to your hand. Now, you don't really want to do this usually, but you could. And the kicker is you can dredge every time. So if you would draw a card, you may mill 3 cards instead, which is basically drawing in this deck. And if you do, you return this card from your graveyard to your hand so that you can play it again. Ripples of Undeath, at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you mill 3 cards, so we love that. It's basically our commander again, or a piece of it, which is actually why our commander is so strong. And then you may pay 1 and 3 life to put a card from among those cards into your hand. Now, paying life isn't too bad, and we definitely want that. Entomb in this deck is definitely a sort of tutor. For 1 mana, you search a library for a card and put it into your graveyard. We love it. Icedale Explorer, 4 mana, you can play an additional land, so basically a Gitrock monster in that sense, but also you may play lands from your graveyard and a landfall ability to, whenever land you control enters, mill card. So it is basically the Gitrock monster, Hedron Crab, and I don't know, something else together, so it's definitely very good. It just does everything a little bit worse. And then Altar of Dementia, we definitely need a way to sacrifice a bunch of creatures, but this one also allows us to put the number of cards equal to the sacrifice creature's power from the top of our own library, if we want, into our own graveyard. Now, we do need to reanimate the stuff that we put into our graveyard, but some are better than others. Kotis, Sip 6 champion, definitely goes with Teval, of course, coming from the same deck, pre-con deck that is. This one says, once during each of your turn, you may cast a creature spell from your graveyard by exiling 3 other cards from your graveyard, and as we are milling a bunch anyways, we can definitely do this every time. And whenever 1 or more creatures you control enter from our graveyard, or was cast from a graveyard, you put 2+1 counters on Kotis, but we don't really care about the last part. Muldrotha is the upgraded Kotis. During each of your turn, you may play a land and cast a permanent of each permanent type from your graveyard. Now, we love this one in this deck, because every time we do, we get a 2/2 zombie with it. I don't want to talk about each one of those. Victimize I really like, because you also get to sacrifice something and then choose 2 creature cards in your graveyard to get back. Grave Researcher is a new one, so I want to talk about that. At the beginning of your upkeep, you Surveil 1, meaning you could put the card into your graveyard, but you could also keep it on top so that you can draw it then. Then if there are 3 or more creature cards in your graveyard, which you should be able to do, this creature becomes prepared, meaning you can cast a reanimate spell to reanimate something. Head Shredder, definitely a great one here. When it attacks, you may mill 2 cards, so almost Teval. Keep saying that. Isn't really true, of course, but whenever 1 or more land cards are put into your graveyard, you can immediately put them onto the battlefield tapped. Now you, for example, if you pair this with a Hedron Crab, what happens is you play a land from somewhere or get it back from your graveyard. Every land that triggers a landfall trigger where you mill another 3 cards. Then the lands you put into your graveyard again, you put onto the battlefield tapped. Do be careful, you can kill yourself. But very good still. 6, definitely good whenever, definitely a Teval here. Whenever 6 attacks, you mill 3 cards. And you may put a land from among them into your hand. So almost getting to Teval levels. As long as it's your turn, non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have retrace as well, meaning you can cast permanent cards from your graveyard by discarding a land in addition to its other costs. So that just means that you go off even more. Now if you get to ramp to 8 mana, which is definitely hard to do, or you get to reanimate this guy, Colossal Grave Reaver, you are off to the races. Definitely a Teval here. Colossal Grave Reaver, whenever this creature enters or attacks, you mill 3 cards. How many cards do something like this? This is actually impressive. And then whenever 1 or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from your library, you put 1 of them onto the battlefield. Definitely a way to go off. Definitely if many things have the ability to mill 3 cards whenever they enter. If we can find more of these, this might be a finisher on its own. Maybe of yourself, but still. Now, something you can also do to trigger Teval is get a card out of your graveyard and return it to your hand. Also works. So for example, Awaken the Honored Dead from the Sultai destroys a non-land permanent for 3 mana. This is also already pretty good because it's flexible. Then you mill 3 cards, basically a Teval again. And then you discard a card, and when you do, you return target creature or land from your graveyard to your hand. But we don't mind that much that it goes to our hand, because at least we get that zombie token. Ramp, we have a bit more of this. Of course, we have our classics like Cultivate or Sol Ring. But we have a package like Sakura Tribe Elder, which we can sacrifice to search for a land and put it onto the battlefield tapped. But then we can reanimate this so it becomes better. Keru Goldkeeper we have to talk a bit about later. So I will skip it now, but it is a combo, so look forward to that. And Will of the Sultai, target player mills 3 cards again. Return all land cards from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This can be a very strong ability and way to ramp, but it's 5 mana, so I don't really count it towards real ramp, honestly. But then you put X +1 counters on target creature, where X is the number of lands you control. You do have to choose one or have your commander out, and you can choose both. But put X +1 counters on target creature, where X is the number of lands you control and it gains trample. So this could be a finisher as well, if you squint really hard. Removal, we have great colors for this, but I went with a bit of a mixture with 3 counterspells, Mana Drain, Swan Song, and Counterspell, and then some removal. So we talked about a few, not too many interesting things, but Lethal Scheme, I think, is 4 mana for an instant that destroys target creature or planeswalker is way overcasted, but you have a Convoke ability, so your creatures can help cast a spell for either a colorless mana or a black mana if the creature is black itself. And then each creature that convoked this spell connives, meaning you draw a card, then discard a card, and discarding a card puts something in your graveyard, if you didn't know. That's great for our deck. And you put a +1 counter on that creature, so we can grow all of our zombies and draw this card, which we both really like. Now on to the juicy stuff. Token creation is definitely a way we could win. We don't have a lot of it here because we were strained for space from all of the combos that we have. But let's say Insidious Roots, let's talk about this one before we talk about the real Teval. Insidious Roots is 2 mana for an enchantment, and creature tokens can now tap for 1 mana of any color, meaning your zombies can tap 1 mana of any color. And whenever one or more creature cards leave your graveyard, which we will do a lot of in this deck, you create a 0/1 token that could then also tap for 1 mana of any color. Then you put a +1 counter on every one of those plant tokens you control. Now, a real Teval, which is actually very funny to me, a bit worse, but better in some ways. Sidisi Brute Tyrant is the previous Teval in many ways, lore-wise, sort of. And because of her mechanics. Right? Whenever Sidisi Brute Tyrant enters the battlefield or attacks, you mill 3 cards. So this works as a Teval. And whenever one or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from your library, so if you mill them there, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. It isn't a druid, but definitely works very good in this deck, as it is basically your second commander. In many ways, at least. Now, we have many ways to finish a game. We have 6 combos laid out here. A very cheap one, if we're talking dollar-wise, is Sir Conrad the Grim. Definitely not a finisher, but Conrad the Grim is a great pinger. Because whenever another creature dies, or a creature is put into the graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent, and we do a lot of that. Now, Mindskinner takes this damage that you deal with Sir Conrad, that you deal to an opponent, and prevents that damage, and then makes each opponent mill that many cards. So whenever you do mill a creature from your opponents, you get to deal 1 damage to each opponent, and then whenever you deal 1 damage to each opponent, you make them mill another card. So this means that you could go off and mill your opponents for everything they have, if they have enough creatures, of course, that is. One other great combo is with Gravecrawler, and there are many ways to do this. But Gravecrawler is a zombie that you can cast from your graveyard for just 1 mana as long as you control another zombie. We have a lot of zombies, so we should be able to do this pretty easily. Then, if we have a way to sacrifice the Gravecrawler with which we can gain mana, like Phyrexian Altar, which can immediately give us 1 black mana for sacrificing Gravecrawler, we can immediately use that mana to cast the Gravecrawler again. And in this way, we get a creature that dies, gets out of the graveyard and onto the battlefield again. And with this, we can deal infinite amounts of damage to our opponents sometimes, or we could create an infinite amount of 2/2 zombies. So there are many ways to go off with this. Another way to deal a bunch of damage is Gerard, because with Gerard you can pay 3 mana to sacrifice another creature, and each opponent loses life equal to the sacrificed creature's power. Now you can sacrifice zombies with this for 2 damage every time, at least it's a finisher. Cauldron of Essence though, I feel is better, because whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life and you gain 1 life. And with the Phyrexian Altar Gravecrawler combo, for example, you get to kill your opponents actually. Now, talking about better ways to finish the game, we can give our zombies flying with Wander. If we have Wander in our graveyard and we control an island, creatures we control have flying, so flying zombies all the way. We talked about Will of the Sultai, but I really like Lost Monarch of Ifnir as well, because it gives your zombies Afflict 3, which means whenever they become blocked, defending player loses 3 life anyways. So if our opponent blocks our 2/2 zombies, they don't lose 2 life, but they lose 3 life instead. And at the beginning of your second main phase, if a player was dealt combat damage by a zombie this turn, you mill 3 cards, so basically Teval again, and then you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand, which means we create another zombie. This can go off very easily. Now, real combos again. Keru Goldkeeper, 4 mana, we talked about this one before, for a dragon. That's already pretty good because we get a 3/3 flyer. But whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard during your turn, you create a treasure token. Now this also goes off with Gravecrawler and a sacrifice ability, but I have something I like better, because we can do this with any creature we want with Tortured Existence. Because you choose and discard a creature card and return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand for 1 mana with this enchantment. This means that a creature card from your graveyard went to your hand and thus left your graveyard, meaning with Keru Goldkeeper you get a treasure. And with that treasure we can pay for Tortured Existence again. And we can do this over and over with our commander, for example, to create an infinite amount of zombies. We talked about this before. This is great. We can also skip the Keru Goldkeeper and use the Phyrexian Altar with this. So we can sacrifice any creature to the Tortured Existence, get the mana from the Phyrexian Altar, and then go off, for example, with our commander again. Now this was it for this deck. I think this is why Teval was so popular, because you can definitely make these types of decks. Now note that we have made half of an optimized deck, but this will be noted as an optimized deck because we have those 2 card combos in here. You can get a bunch of them, but you can definitely upgrade this deck a bit more by putting in more removal and more counter spells, and maybe ditching a bit of the ramp there. Note that you do need to get to 4 mana, but if you have enough control, you can definitely do this. And probably in this deck you will lose a bunch of the reanimation, but I just feel like that is just too fun to do. So let me know what you think of this deck. Let me know if you build Teval yourself, and I wish you a very nice day.